think you should, yeah.
Please forgive me if I slur on a couple of my words whilst recording, because it's really early in the morning. My sleep schedule is not really in a good pattern, so I'm very tired right now because I was up all night. So anyways, we're here to talk about Boruto episode 53. And last week's they did a really good job with last week's episode. I really enjoyed it. I thought it was a great episode. I really did, and I wasn't sure how they were gonna do this week's episode, and lo and behold, they actually did a pretty damn good job. And it was honestly very surprising how well they actually did it, because I wasn't sure how they were gonna do, how well they were going to, handle, the whole scene where, Naruto is at Himawari's birthday, right, and then his shadow clone disperses basically, right, and so, he's basically brought back his shadow clone, but he didn't mean to do it on purpose. He's just so tired and exhausted that it kind of just like vanished, right? And then the cake falls on the floor, and then Boruto's really mad. Himawari is really sad, and it bums me out thinking about it. And then, of course, Boruto's about to go rush over to the Hokage's office and beat the hell out of Naruto, and Hinata stops him. But I wasn't sure how they were going to handle it. And lo and behold, I'm going to skip forward to that scene. I'm going to go ahead and talk about that in the beginning of the video, ironically. They handled that really, really well. They did it a lot different than it was in the movie, because, Naruto opens up the door, and because Boruto, Himawari, and Hinata show up back home, right, with the stuff that he needed for the party. Naruto opens up the door, and then of course Boruto's like, "Oh, he kept that man-to-man promise," which I still don't know what he means by that. He's like, "Oh, he kept the promise, he remembered, yada yada," right? And then of course Himawari is, really happy and excited because, her dad's there for her birthday, and that's what she honestly really wanted for the birthday. And they showed a lot more of the party and a couple other, mainly one scene, and that's Boruto and Naruto talking to each other, and he's like, "We're even, yada yada," right? He kind of just goes on and says, "Yeah, we're even, I'll forgive you for this one day," etc. And he's like, "I can't believe you remembered." I don't remember what he says, but he's like, "You remembered, yada yada," and he's like, "Yeah, of course," right? And Naruto's like, "Yeah, of course I remembered, why wouldn't I?" And they show a lot more. Like, they even show Himawari opening up presents, and she got a teddy bear, and it was adorable, and I really liked it. I really liked that shot. It was pretty fun. And then of course Naruto is about to bring the cake to the table, and then his shadow clone disperses, and the cake falls on the floor, and then everything that I just explained earlier a second ago happens, and Boruto starts talking about, like, "Oh yeah, Grandpa Hokage wasn't even alive when Dad was a kid, right? So he doesn't even know, like, the joy of having a parent around." And during the time that he's like talking about all that, and then like Hinata's talking to him, like, "At least you have your dad around," and I forget what she says, but at least you actually have a parent and a father who's around and stuff like that. Listen to the track that they played during that scene, and up until Sasuke shows up at the end of the episode. They played an entirely new track, and it's it's a song that's made for when it's like a sad or a really emotional moment in either a scene or just like in an episode in general, whatever, right? They brought in a new track, and I don't know who made it, but whoever made that song, oh my god, it's so good. Most of the time you're hearing like violins, right, in the background. You can hear it. It's so good. I don't know how to explain it. You have to listen to it for yourself. It's great. It's one of the better tracks that I've heard so far from this series. It's honestly my favorite so far, but it's really good. And then the entirety of the rest of the episode, and mainly in the beginning, because mainly in the beginning was where I was really kind of like confused, because in the beginning we're at the moon, and Toneri's obviously there, because if you've been watching Boruto since then, or even if you watched Naruto the last, Toneri is like still on the moon, and he's blind. He doesn't excuse me, he doesn't have eyes, stuff like that, right? And then this new guy shows up. This new guy shows up. I don't know what his name is. I feel like he's already shown up in the manga, and that's where he originated. And then Studio Period's like, yeah, we're gonna go ahead and bring him to the anime because they did it in the manga, right? So this new guy shows up. I don't know who he is. The only thing that I can tell you that he's about or what he does is that he is a member of the Otsutsuki clan, and he was sent to go deal with Toneri. He didn't kill him. He kind of like carbonated him. Like Toneri says, like it was like a time freeze, and like this new guy, this new character, right? I don't know what his name is. He has like this like whip thing. You can like not wrapped around, but it like went off and then it like curved back and then hit Toneri in the back, and then like I don't know if that's what caused like this time freeze ability, but basically Toneri is on the moon, you know, not being able to move or anything, right? And they were all talking about like Boruto, but they weren't indirectly saying, you know, Boruto's name. They were talking about like, oh, the lady with the Byakugan, and I was like, you mean Hinata? Like, I don't know why they were being so discreet, I guess is the word, with like, you know, Boruto and his name. And then by the end of it, before like the intro plays, you know, he's saying like, oh, Boruto's not strong enough. But if you watch the movie, you already know how this fucking arc is gonna end, so it's not like it really matters, right? So the intro plays, and then, you know, Naruto's doing like the whole like interview thing from, you know, the movie, right? He's talking about that. He's saying, you know, etc., whatever he says in the movie, right? And then they're going. Denki and Shikadai are also, you know, next to Boruto as they were watching it happen, right? And they were talking about, you know, the tuning exams and, you know, when they're gonna get recommendations for to participate in the tuning exams. And then Boruto is all like, I don't really care about being a chunin. I'd rather be like the super cool ninja like Sasuke or Mr. Sasuke, whatever he calls him, right? And Chikadai's like, oh, you mean Sarada's dad, right? And then he's like, yeah. So he's basically like, oh, it's like a license, right? Being a chunin or a jonin, right? And you know, there's a lot more to being a chunin and a jonin besides just going about and doing missions and stuff. But that's a whole other topic for another day if you really want it on the channel, of course. So that happens, and then we continue on a little bit later on in the episode, and then they do the whole scene with the scientist guy. Actually, before that happens, you know, Team Ina Shikacho, Inojin, Shikadai, and Chocho, they get the recommendation letters. So I don't know what the whole importance with that was about. Shikadai says something. I forget what he says, but he says something and it seemed important. But all around, the scene wasn't really all that much important. And then immediately afterwards, they do like the whole scene where I forget what the scientist guy's name is. He won't show up again. Like after like the whole Boruto movie arc will show up. At least I don't think he will. But I forget what his name is. It's the scientist guy that Boruto talks to get basically hacks and cheats for his fucking game. So he's all talking about, you know, the ninja tool, like the main thing that was like this huge thing in the movie, right? He's talking about it. He's talking about like, yeah, they're battle ready. You know, the Genin can use it for the tuning exams, yada yada. And then, you know, Naruto and Shikamaru are like, no, the whole point of the tuning exams is that way they can develop more as a ninja and etc., right? You know, if you watch the movie, you already know what he says, but or if you already watched the episode, of course, but you know, he's saying like, no, we're not gonna use the ninja tools because, you know, this whole tuning exams isn't a performance. Like it's so that way, you know, it's the purpose for natural shinobi to actually, you know, improve and become stronger, and you know, that was the whole point of it, right? And so of course this scientist motherfucker, I forget what his name is. I keep forgetting. I don't know why. I really apologize for that, but you know, he's all sad, he's disappointed. He goes back to his lab, and then some guy with like a hood over his head. You can't see his face, but he's got a hood over his head. And then we don't know who it is, so maybe we'll figure that out in the next episode. One thing I will say that I was kind of bummed about was we didn't get to see Sasuke versus Kinshiki or Kinshiki like at all, and I was like, I didn't realize that until after I watched the episode. I was like, why? Why didn't we see that? That's so much more interesting than that Toneri stuff. Because if anything, that was fucking confusing. But it's whatever. So we get to the scene where Savrada basically confronts Boruto, like why he's not taking the tuning exams, and he's just like he goes off, saying basically what he was saying before to Denki and Shikadai, right? And then ultimately, if you watch the movie, of course, once again, you know that Boruto ends up caving in because Savrada convinces him to take the tuning exams because she mentions the fact that the Hokage and everyone else who's watching, like the other something just dropped on the floor, that the Hokage and the other Kage, like the Raikage, the Tsuchikage, the Mizukage, are gonna be there watching the tuning exams, right? And I watched the scene and I was confused as to why they didn't already know this information, because they already seem to know like a general consent of what happened during the Fourth Shinobi World War. So who's to say they didn't, hear anything about, the tuning exams and what that was all about, and like the books in the academy, because that seemed to have some of the Fourth Shinobi World War for some reason. And so that basically happens. Boruto is walking about, he's like, oh, I gotta keep this promise, this man-to-man promise, yada yada. And then we make full circle. We go full circle from what we were talking about in the ending of the episode at the beginning of the video to the beginning of the video to halfway through the beginning of the episode to the middle of the video. So that happens, and that's basically what the rest of the episode is about. I already explained it in the beginning of the video, and I really liked it. They did a lot more than they did in the movie, and ultimately it was executed so much better because now that I'm thinking about it, I'm like rethinking some of the scenes in the movie, right, and how they were done. I'm starting to think about it, and I'm like, now it feels kind of like they rushed it a little bit, and then it seemed like they actually like took their time and really executed a lot of these scenes better in this week's episode. And it helps that the episode actually does look really good as well. The episode with the animation, the art style, I didn't really, I mean I saw a couple of like downward spirals with some characters. I mean, some characters' art design, but it wasn't really that noticeable. Like if you're watching it for the first time and you're just like a casual viewer who's watching this series on a week-to-week basis, that isn't someone like me who's reviewing and talking about it. You don't really pay attention to stuff like that. You just watch the episodes, right? And but for the most part, like I said, the animation and the art style was really solid all the way through. The execution for a lot of stuff that actually did happen in the episode was really good, really fantastic. I really enjoyed this episode, and it's a lot better than I expected. I really wasn't sure how they were gonna do it, and they actually did it pretty well. So anyways, I think I rambled on for long enough. So anyways, that's the end of the video, and I have nothing else to add on top other than I hope you did enjoy, and if you did, be sure to leave a like, and if you're new to the channel, please consider hitting that subscribe button and turn on the notifications, because even when you subscribe to the channel, you don't get notified when I upload. So be sure to hit that bell and get notified whenever I do upload. So anyways, that's the end of the video. Leave a like, subscribe. I'll see you guys in the next one. Have a fantastic day, evening, or night. That's the same thing. Anyways, I'm out. Peace.